Hello, everybody. My name is Juan Mercado, and I will be doing my project on the drug capital of the world, Colombia. To begin, the country of Colombia includes the settlements and society of several indigenous people. Many indigenous people inhabited the country in time periods before Christ. They are recognized for pottery, the trade of gold, plantations, and other rich resources that came from this country. The country is currently urbanized. 76% of the population lives in towns or cities. In 2002, the Colombian population reached 44 million people. The capital of Colombia is Bogota, and it is estimated to have a population of 10 million people. Colombia is one of the countries with significant race integration. About 75% of the population is mixed race. Colombia contains 5 main natural regions. It shares the Andes mountain ranges with Ecuador and Venezuela, and Colombia is the only country that contains the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean as its borders. Spanish settlers arrived in the country around the late 1400s and began with conquest and colonization. A few hundred years later, the country gained its independence from Spain and won in 1819. By 1830, the independence had dissolved, bringing forward the Republic of Colombia in 1886. Colombia is known for having many different languages, and it has a rich cultural heritage and imposing landscape that gives it its strong recognition. About 60% of Colombia's population are mestizos, and some 1/5 are European descent. About 1% are indigenous people. 15% of the people are mixed with African or European descent. The art and culture of Colombia's foods peaked around the 16th century, which was before the Spanish settled in the country. Their music is influenced by African and Native American roots. Along with excelling in arts and crafts, their foods are very similar to those of any Latin American country. Their traditional dish is a soup, and it is called ajiaco. It contains chicken, corn, potatoes, and avocados. Moving up a couple thousand years forward, we get to the early 1900s, the beginning of strong politics that would eventually steer current media to its current state. In 1957, 2 political leaders issued a joint venture to lead the country concurrently. Laureano Gomez and Alberto Yernas offered the country to alternate political parties every 4 years for the next 16 years. This led to what was known as the end of La Violencia. The early stages of La Violencia began in the 1900s with an assassination of a popular politician named Jorge Gaitan. He was a Liberal Party presidential candidate in the election of 1949. His murder provoked massive rioting and killed some 5,000 people. Political leaders and law enforcement encouraged each during this time for conservatives supporting peasants to take over agricultural lands of any liberal supporting peasants. This created a huge violence, which was known as La Violencia. In total, this affair killed 200,000 people. During this time, news releases were done through church. Since the majority of the Catholic Church was behind the Conservative Party, it encouraged murders of political opposition and press reports, which were released by the church. Even in the 1950s, the government was accused of censorship against journalists, writers, and directors of media outlets. Many media political figures left the country and resettled in countries like Argentina, Chile, Mexico, or Paris, France. Between 1973 and 1982, politics were under major evaluation. They wanted to end the inconsistencies that undermined Colombian traditional political systems. Eventually, poverty brought forth new ideas, goals for people within the country. During the early and late 80s, the country of Colombia were under major influences in marijuana trade and eventually leading to cocaine. The guerrilla group M19, founded in April 1970, mostly by students, was the second largest revolutionary armed forces in Colombia. The media portrayed them as kidnappers and drug traffickers. The group was so powerful until drug figures like Pablo Escobar took into their own hands to eliminate the group, who was known for kidnapping. This eventually left out most media outlets as well. Eventually, by 1980s, the group M19 failed to exist due to a huge influence by drug traffickers killing each and every one of those and getting a prize for killing them. During these years, the entire Medellin cartel was pretty much in control of the entire country because of fear tactics. The late 1980s included assassinations of political leaders, journalists, and anyone who spoke bad about the Medellin cartel. The Medellin cartel was avoiding extradition and would not allow anyone to speak or bring up their name without violent consequences. Eventually, the news journalists continued to report their news, speaking out about the cartel, which was one of the most powerful in the entire Latin American area. Eventually, they launched a war and hurt many of the news reporters, eventually killing owner of El Espectador. The leader of Medellin cartel was Pablo Escobar. Up to this day, he is known to be the most powerful and wealthiest drug trafficker of all time. Pablo Escobar intended to buy news media and government officials and succeeded to a certain level, with massive violence that occurred in the hands of government, eventually teaming up with the United States DEA and killed him, eliminating his cartel operations. Groups have been able to be on the news headline, eventually bringing to shame government officials, political figures that have been tied to drug cartels since 1990s. Even up to this day, 2001 through 2018, current collaborators with drug traffickers in Colombia keep occurring. The media in this country often covers the drug cartels, but lets politics keep its play. Colombia continues to be a big problem as far as corruption, distribution of drugs worldwide.